Hello and welcome. Today is April 7th and it would be an A day if we were still in school. I want to continue on with our theme for the week of figurative language and today talk about metaphor and simile. Metaphor and simile are very closely related and they are two very commonly used examples of figurative language in poetry and writing, so I think it makes sense to use those first. So we'll start with metaphor, and a metaphor is defined as a comparison between two unlike things that share something in common. So let's try to break that down and see if we can make it a little bit easier to understand. So a metaphor is used to highlight some quality or trait of whatever it is you're talking about. And you highlight that quality or trait by comparing the thing to something else that is well known for that quality or trait. So let's use an example to make it a little easier. Let's say we want to say a person is really, really fast. They're an incredible runner. And just to make it a little less confusing, we'll give the person a name. We'll say Kim. Kim is an incredibly fast runner. She's on the track team, she's a sprinter, and she's faster than everyone else. We want to highlight just how fast Kim is by using a metaphor. So we need to compare her with something that is fairly widely known as being very fast. Now, I just so happen, because I'm weird, to have an example of something very fast right behind me over my left shoulder, a cheetah. Cheetahs are the world's fastest land animal. So it makes sense to use that as an example to compare it to. So we say in a metaphor, Kim is a cheetah on the track. That's a metaphor. We're making a comparison between two things that are unlike. Kim, a human being, presumably, and a cheetah, a large cat. Now, on the surface, they're very dissimilar, but they share something in common, being fast. And the effect of the metaphor is to highlight just how fast Kim is, right? So that's the purpose of that metaphor. We want to make that highlight. Now, a couple of cautions here. When you use a metaphor, you want to make sure you're making a comparison to something that makes sense to a large group of people, to the general populace. You don't want to make a comparison to something that only you understand. Right? Because then the metaphor doesn't really work for anyone. So you got to be careful. Also, you want to make sure you don't make a mixed metaphor, right? So you want to make sure that you're choosing something that makes sense. Again, if we want to talk about how fast Kim is, we don't want to make a comparison to something that isn't that fast, right? So, if we said that Kim is a turtle on the track, that's really not saying she's fast. In fact, it's saying the opposite, because turtles are generally known as being quite slow. So that metaphor won't really work if your intention is to talk about how fast Kim is. So it's important to make choices that make sense, right? Figure out what it is you want to highlight that you're going to make the metaphor for, and then choose what you're going to make the comparison with. That's the best way to go about it. Now, let's move on to simile. And a simile is nearly identical to a metaphor. In fact, there's only one little thing that separates it. And it's the usage of a word. Two words, really, depending on which you choose. So a simile is a comparison between two unlike things that share something in common using like or as. And it's the addition of one of those two words that changes the metaphor into a simile. So let's go back to Kim, the really fast runner. If we said that Kim runs like a cheetah, we are now making a simile because we said like a cheetah. We're still making a comparison between Kim and the cheetah, but because we've added the word like, we have now created a simile. Again, the effect is the same. The purpose is the same. We want to highlight just how fast Kim is, and we're comparing her to a cheetah. But we're adding the word like. He was as a cheetah on the track. Again, same effect, same purpose, but we've added the word as there, now making it a simile. So that's a basic breakdown of metaphor and simile. They're important to understand, they're important to use. When you are reading poetry or any writing that uses a metaphor or simile, try to identify what it is that the comparison is being made to. And then try to see if you can figure out what that object that the comparison is being made to, what it's known for, right? So if you can do that, you can start to understand what the purpose of the metaphor or simile exists for, right? If something is being compared to, say, a bear, think about what bears are known for. If something is being compared to a nightmare, right? Mr. C's class was a nightmare. Hopefully not true, but for some of you it might be, right? That metaphor is comparing the class to a nightmare. Nightmares for most people are not a good thing, right? They're terrifying. So therefore, the comparison being made is to highlight just how scary the class is, right? Mr. C's obsession with cats is a nightmare. Again, highlighting the comparison there between the obsession with cats and nightmares. Both are incredibly scary. So again, figure out what the metaphor, what the simile is making the comparison with, and what the main trait or characteristic of it is. And that'll help you with understanding these things. So that's a basic breakdown, and I'll leave you with a bonus simile here. And Mr. C's hair grows like a weed. So let's break down that simile. Weeds grow very fast and are quite unattractive and a nuisance. So I'm making a comparison between my hair and weeds, which grow fast, are unattractive, and a nuisance. And to prove my point, so there's that. Hope you all have a good day. Until next time, be good.